So the right wing have decided to smear the good people of Britain as anti-Semites. We've had pundits share a Telegraph article claiming 1/5 of Britons are anti-Semitic. Julia Hartley-Brewer said 1 in 5 Brits is now anti-Semitic. 1 in 5. Congratulations to the BBC, Sky, Channel 4 and other media who've helped stir up this ancient hatred by deliberately perpetuating the lie that Israel is committing a genocide on Gaza. You know better. Shame on you all. Now, of course, Israel is committing a genocide. But of course, it's apparently the media, specifically the BBC, who have continually provided cover for Israel, have somehow contributed to anti-Semitic attitudes. So let's have a look at this Telegraph article. More than 1 in 5 Britons now hold or agree with anti-Semitic views, a study has found. The study found that 21% of the public affirmed 4 or more anti-Semitic statements compared to 16% last year. In 2021, the figure was just 11%. Researchers said the findings showed that the number of people holding that would be considered entrenched anti-Semitic views has doubled in less than 5 years to more than 1/5 of the population. So that's a bold claim. 21% apparently have anti-Semitic views. So what evidence does the Telegraph have to support this claim? The YouGov survey, commissioned by Campaign Against Anti-Semitism, found that 45% of the British public, almost half the population, believes that Israel treats the Palestinians like the Nazis treated the Jews. So the extreme Zionist organisation, which is Campaign Against Anti-Semitism, a group who do not give a toss about anti-Semitism, have said that because 45% of people believe Israel is treating Palestinians like the way Jews were treated by the Nazis, is somehow anti-Semitic. I've got news for you. Israeli politicians are literally Nazis. Now, we don't need to go over all the horrific crimes Israel has committed over the decades, and especially the last couple of years. But even if you think the comparison is strong, how exactly is that anti-Semitic? The CAA said equating Israel's actions with those of Hitler's Nazis was one of the most common anti-Semitic tropes that we see. Wait, what? I mean, that's not a trope. I don't know how this is seen as an anti-Semitic trope. And by the way, I think Israel are behaving like the Nazis. The Holocaust isn't the only genocide. Now, certainly it's one of the most deadly. And of course, it's an incredibly sensitive subject. But after the Holocaust, we said never again. Yet here we are doing it again. Just look at this post that was removed. Never again can't only mean never again for Jews. And this is their apology after removing the Instagram image. The Holocaust Museum LA, the first survivor-founded and oldest Holocaust museum in the country, is committed to its core mission to educate, commemorate, and inspire. We recently posted an item on social media that was part of a pre-planned social media campaign intended to promote inclusivity and community that was easily open to misrepresentation by some to be a political statement reflecting the ongoing situation in the Middle East. That was not our intent. So they wanted to promote inclusivity, saying that genocide can happen to any group of people, and that was controversial. It was certainly straight to the point, sure, but it's not incorrect. If you think I'm being hyperbolic when I say Israel is behaving like Nazis, these are real quotes from Israeli politicians. Daniel Hagari, he's the Israeli army spokesman, he said, "We are dropping hundreds of tons of bombs on Gaza. The focus is on destruction, not accuracy. We will turn Gaza into an island of ruins." The current Prime Minister, Benjamin Netanyahu. Now, there is only one goal: Nakba, expulsion of the Palestinians. A Nakba in Gaza that will dwarf the Nakba of 1948. Wipe out their families, their mothers, and their children. These animals must not be allowed to live any longer. There's more. Jericho missile, doomsday weapon. That's my opinion. Powerful rockets to be fired without borders. Gaza to be smashed and razed to the grounds without mercy. Yoav Gallant, the defense minister of Israel. There will be no electricity, no food, no fuel. Everything is closed. We are fighting animal people and we are acting accordingly. President of Israel, Herzog, it is an entire nation who are responsible. This rhetoric about civilians supposedly not being involved is absolutely untrue. and we will fight until we break their backs. I want to tell the world what they have long known about me and Israel. I don't care about Gaza. I literally don't care about Gaza. They can go swimming in the sea. Maya Golan, who's Israel's Minister of Women's Affairs. Now, you tell me that's not like Nazi rhetoric. But let's read on, shall we? The study found that almost half, 49%, of 18 to 24-year-olds said they were uncomfortable spending time with people who openly support Israel, with only 18% comfortable doing so. Only 31% of young voters agree that Israel has a right to exist as a homeland for the Jewish people. 20%, one-fifth of them, says that it does not. Other findings include 58% of young people believe that Israel and its supporters are a bad influence on our democracy compared to 29% of the overall population. I'm still struggling to find any anti-Semitic attitudes here. I would be uncomfortable spending time with someone who openly supports a state that's committing genocide. How is that racism? And in the other poll, it shows that more young people agree with the statement that Israel has a right to exist. 31% said so, and 20% said it shouldn't. So I'm confused, right? How is a poll that shows more people agree with an Israeli state than doesn't means this is anti-Semitic? Plus, if you're someone who thinks there shouldn't be an Israeli state, I don't think that's anti-Semitic, because Jewish people and Israel are not the same. Equating Jews and Israel is itself anti-Semitic, which is what Zionists do all the time. In a further reflection of a decades-old anti-Semitic trope, 26% of the British public believe that Israel can get away with anything because its supporters control the media, up from 18% last year. Among young people, the figure jumps to 42%. Now, this is far more nuanced, right? Saying that Jews control the media, all the institutions, the banks, that is an anti-Semitic trope. The racist conspiracy used by the Nazis was that Jewish people controlled society and tried to force degeneracy on the German population, which was multiculturalism, social progressive views, etc. The Nazis think that being gay was some kind of Jewish conspiracy, which, by the way, you're seeing it more and more. You're seeing it on Twitter. So it's the far right you need to be worried about. This is not how the question was asked, though. It said, Israel can get away with anything because its supporters control the media. Now, it's very probable that those who have their views are, some of them anyway, are anti-Semitic for the reasons laid out above. However, it is a literal fact that we have a powerful Israeli lobby, and the mainstream media is largely pro-Israel. There are many Zionists within our corporate media, such as the BBC. So it's way more nuanced, but that's not good enough evidence. The CAA said, bearing in mind that the overwhelming majority of British Jews identify as Zionists and with the Jewish state, these attitudes among young Britons have enormous implications for young Jews on campus, on social media, and starting out in the workplace. This is irrelevant. I don't care if the majority of a community has a certain opinion. It doesn't mean it's correct, right? This is the sort of sectarian politics that the media always level against Muslims in their Islamophobic narrative. They love to attack Muslims for having certain opinions. They love to generalize Muslims. So if you oppose Israel, you must oppose Jews. Of course, that's not true. And once again, conflating Jewish people with Israel. And what about the minority? Why are anti-Zionist Jews not important? Well, that's right. Zionists attack them too. They are incredibly anti-Semitic to Jewish people who don't side with Israel. Now, this next paragraph gets to the crux of the article and why this figure, this 1/5 of people are anti-Semitic, is complete and utter bullshit. The questions posed as part of the survey, including 6 relating to Judeophobic and anti-Semitism, and 6 relating to anti-Zionist anti-Semitism, as part of the generalized anti-Semitism scale devised by academics to gauge anti-Jewish feeling and based on International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance definition of anti-Semitism. So you heard that correctly, by the way. 6 relating to anti-Zionist anti-Semitism. There we go. As expected, they are including anti-Zionist arguments as anti-Semitic. This is what pro-Israel groups do. They include criticisms of Israel or an ethno-nationalism ideology and pretend that anti-Semitism is massively on the rise in order to bolster support for Israel. An incredibly old trick. And by the way, anti-Semitism is most likely on the rise. but the scale in which these organizations claim so doesn't really reflect the true nature of it when you're including criticisms of Israel. Once again, many Jewish people are included in the anti-Zionist bracket, and the Campaign Against Anti-Semitism group is attacking Jewish people. There is also a poll about anti-Semitic attitudes by political parties, which I think is very, very interesting. 10% of Reform voters do not believe Jewish people are as loyal to Britain as other British people, and 24% believe that Jewish people chase money more than other people do. These are higher figures than for voters of any other major party. By contrast, only 7% of Reform voters say that they disagree that they would be comfortable spending time with people who openly support Israel, the lowest figure for all party voters. It's almost as if there's a big difference between supporting Israel and being anti-Semitic. So Reform voters and supporters are most likely to be Zionists, and they don't care if they surround themselves by Zionists and Israel supporters, yet they harbour the most amount of anti-Semitic attitudes. There is no correlation there. Only the pro-Israel organisations want you to believe that. In contrast, 1/3, 33%, of Labour voters say that they are uncomfortable spending time with people who openly support Israel. And a majority, which is 54%, are Green Party voters. 29% of the British public believe that Israel and its supporters are a bad influence on our democracy, up significantly from 22% last year. 54% of Green Party voters and 32% of Londoners believe this. Among Green Party voters, 15% believe that the Hamas attack on Israel on the 7th of October 2023 was justified, higher than any other major party's voters. 29% of Labour voters believe that Israel can get away with anything because its supporters control the media. So when it comes to Reform, the most right-wing party, they are the least likely to support Palestine, have the most amount of anti-Semitic attitudes. So are the Zionists and the media outraged by Reform? Where's the wall-to-wall coverage of anti-Semitism and the anti-Semitism crisis in Reform? Why wouldn't they ask Nigel Farage to apologise? It's funny that, but look how manipulative they're being. When it came to Reform, the questions asked were straight up, do you have any anti-Semitic attitudes? But when it came to Labour and the Green Party, why weren't the same questions asked? Suddenly, they pivoted to questions about Israel and not Jewish people. Now, when it comes to are Hamas justified on their attack on the 7th of October, it's a minority of people who say they were justified. Of course, that still misses out the context that, October 7th is every day for Palestinians. They've been occupied for 75 years. They deserve armed resistance. But as I've always said, I don't support what Hamas did because innocent people were killed. But history and context is obviously important. A spokesman for the Campaign Against Anti-Semitism said, our country is clearly at a tipping point. These are the highest anti-Semitism figures that we have ever recorded, having doubled in less than 5 years. Our young people are being radicalized into adopting hateful ideologies before our eyes. Britain will lose its soul to extremists unless the silent majority wakes up. No, people don't stand with the hateful terrorist nation of Israel. People are waking up and are not falling for Israeli propaganda. Remember that we have live shows 3 times per week, every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 7:30 p.m. discussing the latest political stories. We are trying to go full-time and grow this channel. You can support us by going to turnleftmedia.co.uk/support. There you can support us monthly via Patreon, or there is another link to a one-off donation. Alternatively, you can become a YouTube member for just 99p. Remember to like this video, subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you soon.